Welcome back to the Pam Pum Experience Podcast. Today we're thrilled to have Lisa Apolinski with us. Prior to moving further to the conversation with her, let me present her as today's guest. Lisa is the founder and CEO of Three Dog Ride Inc., a leading digital consulting agency in Gilbert, Arizona. With over 30 years in digital marketing, she has driven nearly $1 billion in revenue growth through innovative strategies. She is a renowned international speaker and expert in digital marketing strategy, content creation, and storytelling. Her insights featured on Forbes and beyond have earned her the title America's Digital Content Futurist. Lisa's book, The Greatest Personal Brand Story Ever Told, with subtitle A 2000-Year-Old Guide to Make Your Brand More, is a global standout in content marketing. Join us as we delve into Lisa's journey and uncover how businesses can leverage storytelling to amplify their marketing impacts. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Hi, Mitka. How are you?
Doing great and excited to have this conversation with you today, Lisa. We had a couple of conversations prior to recording this episode, and I'm really excited to somehow reproduce what we covered before and maybe even upgrade it, as you mentioned a few minutes ago. And let's start with the essentials and cover the most important ingredients to help speakers perform great as podcast guests, which is going to be our primary topic today. Where do we need to start?
Yeah. So, speakers want to leverage every opportunity that they can to showcase their area of genius, that expertise, that something that makes them stand out from everybody else in the space. To me, that's a key component, whether they are on a podcast, they're being interviewed live, they're being interviewed by Forbes or the New York Times, they're on a stage of 100 people, 1,000 people, 5,000 people. They need to have real clarity around what it is that they want to be known for. What is that area of genius? Now, in my practice, I work with speakers, authors, consultants to help them engage or re-engage and reignite their authority power. And that's part of that journey when you're deciding your authority power and what you're going to stand for, what you're going to be known for. That's what ignites that thought leadership within you. A lot of speakers that I work with want to be everything to everybody because they think if I'm marketable to all of these people, then I'll get a bunch of bookings. And that's what we're looking for, right? As speakers, we want to get booked for the stage and to get that higher dollar value for that engagement. I actually talk to my clients about becoming niche within a niche. So we want to be highly focused on who our right fit client is. That's first. And I don't want you to think that when you're on stage that you're just speaking. Hopefully, you are looking at the stage and the audience as part of that right fit client mentality. We want to be looking at target rich environments. So, understanding who we serve, and I mean who we serve, get real specific. As I mentioned earlier, I work with speakers, authors, consultants. And most of the time, that's a combination of 3 in 1. Most people are an author, they are a keynote speaker, and they also do consulting because that's part of their business. So I have a very clear niche of who I work with. And then I also have a very clear result of when I work with people, what they want to get. They want to become the go-to in their industry. And a go-to is not just for consulting, it's also for the stage. The ideal situation for a speaker is the meeting planners are getting together. And just as an aside, I used to do meeting planning and event management. And I would be one of the people around the table presenting my candidate, as it were, for the keynote. And what I would love to see happen for speakers who not only work with me, but just are out there in general, that 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 of the meeting planners are presenting the same person. When that happens, you get into what I like to call a no-brainer situation. It is a no-brainer to pick that person. They go, "Awesome, that's it," and they go, and they move on to the next topic. We also wanna have that no-brainer thought process when people are choosing us for consulting. We want them to go, "Oh my god, I have to work with you. How do I do it?" Not, "Well, what's your price?" And, "Well, is this really the right choice for me?" We want them to be emotionally invested in working with us. And we want the same thing when we're on stage. We want people to lean in as we're speaking and go, "Oh my gosh, that 45-minute session, that hour session just helped me move the needle and I didn't even realize it." So these are things that we want to see happen, but we have to start with who we serve and what it is that we do and what result they get out of hearing us speak, reading our book, and working with us in a consulting setting.
Right. So this stage one, and seems like they couldn't move forward without figuring all the. Could you share something from your experience working with people on this first stage? What are the most often? You already mentioned some of the misconceptions that I want to serve everyone, but is there anything else that they need to change before moving forward with the next stage?
Yeah, another thing that I would recommend before you move forward and actually try to get onto a stage, and this could be for an emerging speaker or a speaker who's changing topics, because that can happen. You kind of graduate out of one expertise and you go into another, and it's a natural progression with
Mhm.
the economic and political climate and what have you. One of the key areas when we're looking at moving into that is, what is it about what you do that is transformative, disruptive? And I want people to get past the "ers" situation, right? Cheaper, better, faster, because that's not really innovative. And we want to
Mhm.
kind of break out of that. And the thing that I find so interesting, and I love this, when I work with my clients, I have them go through what it is that they do, and they will throw out something that to them is obvious. "Oh, I just do this." And it's that one step that I'm like, "Oh my god, stop. Wait, you do that?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, doesn't everybody?" No, not
Hmm.
everybody does that. So going through your process with someone on the outside who can look at it and say, that throwaway that you just mentioned is actually the piece that you can really sink your teeth into, and it's something that you believe should be the norm, and it really is not.
Is it going to the so-called impact statement, this unique feature or sentence?
It's more, I think it's more of their process of how they do it. I don't I don't want I live in the world of multiple right answers. So I don't wanna say, when I hear features and benefits, I kinda cringe because people hide behind that, and to me, this is a little bit different. It's not a feature, it is part of the process that is proprietary, unique,
Yeah.
that helps you stand out. To me, a feature is, uh, I'm looking around my room here. Um, I have a new chair. My boyfriend lovingly bought me a new chair for my desk. I could tell you all the features about the chair, right? That it swivels, that the height is easily adjustable. Um, that's great, but that's not, I mean, I'm talking about it and even I'm not excited about it, right? It's just whatever. It is what it is. But what if the chair could be put together in 30 seconds or less? And let me tell you, putting together a chair is awful. Like, I don't know if last time you put together a chair, it's the worst experience ever. So, what if it was something like that where it's so easy that you're not messing with the chair, you're actually using the chair, and that was something and the person who created the chair was like, "Well, of course it takes 30 seconds or less, but for any other experience you've ever had, that would be something very different."
Yeah.
And one of the things that I recommend, because it's a great way to reconnect with past clients and it's free. I love free. Go back and talk to your clients and ask them what part of the process surprised you? What what part of the process were you not expecting that you were like, "Wow, that's an aha moment." And gather that information. I think you'd be surprised, something that you would throw away, that you wouldn't even consider a feature because you think it's the standard, is something that's actually transformative for your clients.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for elaborating here. We start to the first stage. Obviously, there is something else as following that one. But while doing our practices, me as a podcast guest booking agency owner, I've crossed on situations where potential clients have certain type of expectations, and it's not always the case where I say, yeah, let's move forward. And I can guarantee you that you get bookings from these top tier podcasts, and hosting top tier shows. And I can still clearly remember that we covered that in our previous conversations. How do we work with people whose expectations might be higher than their level of current authority, let's say, as seen from the host's perspectives?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's funny that you're bringing this up because I actually had a conversation with my booking agent about this yesterday
Mhm.
with somebody else, a client of hers. And I'm actually going to be talking to that person in the next couple of weeks. So I'm sure as a speaker, you are very confident in your speaking skills. I am very confident in my speaking skills, right? I have been keynoting, speaking on stage, on international stages for 15 years. However, I have to put in the however. If I don't have the backing, the clear credentials of what I've done, I can't expect a meeting planner to put their reputation, potentially their job,
Mhm.
and the reputation of the association and the conference to put all that on the line and take my word for it.
Yeah.
And it's not that they don't want to believe you, it's that they have to be risk averse because they have to have a great show every year. And they can't rely on, well, our keynote speaker from 3 years ago was fantastic. Nobody remembers that. They only remember the last show they went to, and it can affect sponsorship. It can affect membership to the association. It can affect attendance. It's a huge impact if the keynoter is crap. And I hate to say it, there's very few times that I can remember a really good keynoter. I mean, I can remember one keynoter, and it was Jewel, the singer of all people, and she did a fantastic job, and it was for the Travel Association, Travel and Hospitality.
Mhm.
Fantastic job, but she's also a performer. She's on stage all the time. She incorporated music with her story. She just did an amazing job. I can also remember at least 3 keynoters that were so bad, people were getting up and leaving because they were like, "I'm not gonna waste my time with this." And I'm sure again, no speaker is like, "Oh, I'm gonna get on that stage. I'm probably not gonna do well, but, it's okay." Every speaker wants to do well. The question is have you developed the reputation within the industry to warrant that stage? The large stage, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50,000 people, it has to be earned. It has to be earned.
Probably this is the right moment to also insert an extra sentence and mention that the same applies for the podcast guests and the virtual studio stages and the ones recorded in person in studios. I mean, same principles applies, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you don't I mean, they might go, "Oh, well, it's just a podcast. What's the big deal?" Because you're also that person has invested time, they have invested resources, they have prepared for the podcast, and you and I talked about when the podcast host does not show up, which is awful.
Yeah.
Because hosts have to learn too. So someone who's honed their craft, who's really good at interviewing, who's been doing it for years, who has a great following on their show, and they have a schedule. I mean, you're talking about doing the podcast, editing it, releasing it. And if they interview you and it's garbage, now they have to scramble to do something else to stay on schedule. And to me, that's not fair. It's not fair to them. And it also then gives you a bad experience because if you're on a podcast and it's not going well, which I have seen, but really because the guest got really nervous, hadn't fully prepared for the interaction, and didn't have tools to really help them get through it. And believe me, I understand. Again, I've been doing podcasting interviews for, again, like 15 years. One of my live interviews, I was being interviewed live on an Australian news network. And he asked me a question that I wasn't prepared for. And thank God something happened with the feed and it cut off. And I was like, and and it happens. It totally happens and it's okay. But I had tools to buy me time. And you and I have talked about this. And I
Yeah.
actually threw one out today already. Because I was like, ooh, I use what I call magic words and phrases. These are phrases that are associated with you that you use over and over and over that do two things. It helps make your brand more human and more relatable. And because you use the phrase a lot, people get it and they internalize it. And number two, because you use it a lot, it gives your brain that 2 to 3 seconds to catch up and
Yeah.
be able to answer the question smoothly. And I think you would agree, Miko. Hosts are not, podcast hosts are not looking for a gotcha moment. They want something that's smooth. They want something that's insightful. They want a great conversation. And having those magic words and phrases really helps you to get through any bumps. And even as a seasoned guest and interviewee, I have tripped, but
Mm.
I've relied on those magic words and phrases so that I can get back into the right rhythm. And it's something that also, it just helps keep the conversation going without an awkward silence or you going, well, and keeps everything smooth and nice. And especially when you're on live TV and there are no editing possibilities, it's fantastic. And I have used it more than once.
Yeah.
Because again, you're like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that question." And I've done that. Wow, that is a great question. No one has asked me that before. I just talked for 2 to 3 seconds. My brain now has a chance to formulate a response to it, which is fabulous.
Absolutely. And the more we train, the better we become at this, right?
That's right.
I've been thinking about the so-called ladder. People start and then they do, let's say, 10 podcast guest appearances. Maybe they do 2 speaking gigs in the meantime as well. And suddenly it something slips through the cracks again, maybe, and they start dreaming about doing the bigger stages, the bigger podcasts. Is there another ladder parallel related to some bigger leaps in their personal growth and achievements that they need to also put the check mark on in order to start getting their expectations justified at a bigger degree?
Yeah, I absolutely. So I'll tell you a story. One of the things that my father used to tell me is, he was a huge history buff. And he would tell me that back when there were kingdoms and, lords and manors and all this stuff, and they had children, they didn't just give their child the entire estate to manage. They gave them a small amount to really kind of cut their teeth on before they expanded further. And that does two things. Number one, it gives you a chance to fail and not blow everything, right? And it's okay to fall down. It's okay to have an interview that doesn't go exactly right. And if you do enough of this, if you do enough podcasts, you do enough speaking engagements, something bad's going to happen. And the question is, do you have enough experience to pivot without having everything just fall apart? And then the second thing is it gives them confidence so they can go to the next phase because they're like, okay, I'm feeling good about this. I'm getting this and this is working out and I can move on. If you were looking to get onto a big stage, which again is a great dream, and something happened where your presentation gets corrupted, the power goes out. I've been on a stage where all the power went out.
Really?
All the power went out. Yeah, that was fantastic. It was in Florida and they had a big storm and everything went out. Are you comfortable continuing? There were windows and everything, and I just had to pivot and do something else. And I was shouting and walking around and interacting with different areas and gathered people closer together. And we stopped using the PowerPoint. And I had to be able to still present with no notes, no guide, no nothing. Are you comfortable doing that? If someone came to you and said, I know we've given you a 45-minute presentation. I'm so sorry. We had a technical difficulty and we have to get back on track. Your keynote now has to be 15 minutes. Are you comfortable within a span of maybe 15 to 20 minutes, cutting your keynote down to 15 minutes and doing it on the fly? Because these are things that you're going to be expected to do. I think of Sully landing that plane in the harbor in New York. He had so much experience to be able to do that. And sometimes that's what happens to you when you're on a big stage like this. Things just go and you have to be able to pivot. And if you don't have the experience leading up to that where you've done it in a smaller group or a shorter keynote or something like that, it's going to be really hard for you to pivot. And if you can't pivot, I've actually seen associations ask for money back. That's embarrassing.
Oh, this could be one of the most unpleasant experiences, I guess. But talking about keyword here is experience. And this is, thank you for elaborating on all this, Lisa. This is another proof that some of these steps shouldn't be missed and a proper training should be,
Yes.
you know, like a mid stage with the right opportunities there. I have noticed that some people believe that appearing on a smaller show can actually damage their reputation if they see if someone researching and see, oh, he's been on 5 small shows now. Probably they are partially right, but there are still smaller shows with great reputation, and running the podcasts as real brands. So probably there are ways to handle that, and I need to be better and better at identifying all those small opportunities and to help our own clients, move further, walking their next steps, while climbing the ladder. Oh, nice.
And
And yeah.
if I can just add really fast, someone who has a shine to them, someone who has that natural ability to engage will always shine no matter what the situation is,
Oh,
right? So it could be a smaller association, it could be a meeting of 10 people, it could be a smaller podcast, and they are still going to be electrifying.
and in this case, not everything is recorded and published online. There are options to speak in front, let's say, of 20, 30 people. So far, we covered the stage one and some of the specifics of the next stages. You know, how is your service continuing in helping speakers perform great on the stage as podcast guests? What are the other important ingredients that they need to go through while being in your program?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that every single speaker can do regardless of where they are on their speaking journey. Whether they're starting out, whether they've been doing it for 30 years, doesn't matter. Number 1 is they need to look at their keynote or whatever their workshop, keynote, mastermind is going to be, and just make sure, because I know every single person listening to this podcast has so much talent and information, they could probably speak nonstop for a year and not get it all out. The problem becomes you're on a stage for 45 minutes and you just want to fire hose everybody with your knowledge because you have so much to give. I get
Yeah.
it. And you don't recognize that you have so much to give. And you have to remember that when you're speaking, the person listening, again, it takes 2, 3, 4 seconds for their brain to process the information that's presented to them. So when you're presenting one aha moment after the other and they're nonstop, you overwhelm your audience
Mm.
and it will actually be negative. They won't like it because they won't be able to stay with you and then they'll shut down. And that's the worst thing you can have is audience that are like almost as bad as being so boring that they fall asleep. And I've seen that happen too. So limit the number of aha moments in your presentation to 2. You'll
Yeah.
probably end up throwing a third one in there inadvertently, but really, you have to give them just a slice of
Yeah.
everything that you have. Just give them a taste. It's all you need to do. And that taste can inspire them to continue to research more, to learn more. And in those 1 or 2 aha moments that you're providing, make sure that it is something that is very future forward thinking. Now, why do I say that? In the land of AI, if I want to learn about everything that everybody else has said about the topic, I can go ask she who shall not be named. And I'm not saying because she will talk back to me right now. So, if I want to be better than AI, win the race against AI, I have to add that extra kernel of thought and futuristic consideration. I have to tie that back in. I can't just regurgitate what everyone else has said. And that's where those 1 or 2 aha moments become really critical. And if you're being recorded as being put online, AI will find it, which is great. which is actually good. I don't want people to be like, oh, AI. No, no, no. If AI finds you and you've added this kernel of information, plus you've used one or two of your magic words and phrases that are now associated with you, guess what AI does? It presents it and
Yeah.
says, Miko is this person, and this is what he's known for, and his talks help people, blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
now you're being touted by AI as the go-to.
Yeah. Yeah. You become a source, a reference source. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And how about, regardless if it's on the stage or live streamed session or a podcast recording, how about the importance of connecting, with the guest, with the host? It's I know John Maxwell talks about connecting with the audience.
Yeah.
How do you teach about connecting with people?
The best way to connect is to learn about the individual, to learn about the audience.
Mhm.
When I keynote, and I'll talk about me, when I keynote, I find out what what industries will be represented, what are the exhibitors exhibiting on? Because what the exhibitors are exhibiting on tells me what problems the industry is having in the moment. Gives me a little bit of insight. And then I try to tie in stories that relate to the audience, the industry, and the problem.
Nice.
I also I am not a fan, and again, I live in the world of multiple right answers. There is no judgment here. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. I personally like to attend as much of the conference as possible because number one, I get to interact with people one on one when I'm walking around. Number two, I get to hear other speakers. I get to support and hear other speakers. And a lot of times I will incorporate other speakers impromptu into my keynote. I'll bring something up that someone else said. I'll be like, oh, that's a better story than mine. And it's way more relatable. Plus, I just heard it. Fabulous. And it gives me a chance then to, in those moments, to actually have that connection because I've actually invested in the time with that audience in different ways. Now, I know there are some keynoters that are so busy, they fly in the day of, they run, they do the keynote, and they immediately leave.
Yeah, that's
And
another
that's
style.
fine for them. That's fine for them. I'm there to serve that community. And I even talk about that in my book. Your personal brand, and when you're on stage, you're selling your personal brand. You're selling your authority power. Your personal brand has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the audience and how they interact with you. And my new book on authority power that's going to be coming out hopefully this year, that I'm just did the outline. Very exciting. Your authority power, your power is only given to you by your community. I can't self-generate my authority power. I only have authority power because others have given me that power to use. And I
And
want to earn that power. I don't want to just show up and be like, meh, and leave.
yeah,
That's me.
and they gave it to you because you did something before that. You provided some value.
Right.
You're teaching. You're educating and inspiring. Yeah,
Yeah. And
most.
when you're picking, and I heard this from one of the best keynoters that I know. He has been $1 million keynote, which means he has made $1 million keynoting in a year.
Mhm.
Think about that for a second. Was the National Speaker Association president. He has been inducted into the National Speaker Association Hall of Fame. This is my coach, a business consulting coach, Mark LeBlanc, and he says that there are three things that he looks at when he decides where he's going to speak. It's fit, fee, or favor.
Mhm.
Fit, fee, or favor.
It's
Fit,
either of that.
yeah. Yeah, it's one of those 3, and hopefully both, but at least one of those 3. Is it a good fit for you? Is it a target-rich environment? So if you're speaking, you should also be trying to gain new business. If someone hears you on stage, would they be able to approach you afterwards and say, "Oh my god, I have to work with you"? Fit. Fee. They're gonna pay you to show up. Fantastic. Or favor. You are investing in your community. You're doing a favor for someone who's running an event. It's an alma mater or a university, and you're going to waive your honorarium fee to support that community.
Mhm.
That's how you should look at it. And it doesn't have to always be fee. I think that's the key that I got out of that. It doesn't have to always be, I have to have 10,000 for a keynote. Calm down. What if it was a great fit and it led to $1 million worth of business? Would it be okay to not get paid for it? So you have to think about those things.
Yeah. The people you meet at the official dinner and so on and so on. Oh,
Exactly.
nice. Well, look, obviously, some people watching, listening, how can they connect with you? What's the best next step for someone who wants to continue the conversation with you in person, to move further and do that?
Yeah, so I love having conversations with people and learning about their story. I enjoy connecting and building those relationships and seeing how I can support them. So if you're excited, you wanna or just to share your insights into what you've been doing, I would love to hear it. You can email me at lisa@3dogwrite.com. So that's the number 3, dog, D-O-G, write like write with a pen, WRITE.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn and connect with me there, and that's a great place. You can subscribe to my newsletter there, which is a bunch of free information. I also post about what I've been doing now with my community, which I call Tackle Tuesday. So my goal is twice a month. I have basically free office hours where anybody can come in and have a conversation. I post the link on my website. You don't have to register. You don't have to give me your email. You can just show up. Fantastic. And again, it's all about conversation and support. And then purchase one of my 5 books. Very low cost, and you'll get a ton of information out of it. I think all my books are fantastic, but my latest one, The Greatest Personal Brand Story Ever Told, is a great guide to make your brand more human and, again, to become the go-to in your industry so that working with you, whether it is in a podcast, whether it's on stage, whether it's in an interview, or whether it is to hire you to help, becomes a no-brainer.
Awesome. Oh, thank you, Lisa. To quote another book title, there is no B2B or B2C, there is H to H only, human to human.
That's right.
It's by Brian
Absolutely.
Kramer. Yeah. Well, enjoy chatting with you and looking forward to continue the conversation in various ways.
Yes.
I'll make sure to insert all the information in the show notes and, prep a great episode for publishing in due time. Again, enjoy chatting with you and looking forward to partner with you through this entire year again very soon.
Yes. Well,
So,
thank you, Miko. I appreciate you. I appreciate you and
same
everything that
here.
you're doing.
Have a great day and talk soon.